There's nothing like the holiday season, and no event screams Christmas like the arrival of jolly old St. Nick. Hundreds of kids gather in the square to see a very special arrival for the big guy. Santa's going to jump from a plane and parachute down, delivering presents. Wait, Santa is falling awfully fast. Well, that'll put a kibosh on the holiday spirit. And it wasn't the only time. These are the most bizarre accidents that killed Santa on today's episode of the Infographics Show. Number 8. The year was 1932, and Mesa, Arizona was in the throes of the Great Depression just like the rest of the U.S. It was likely to be a skimpy Christmas this year, with only small practical gifts for most kids. But editor John McPhee of the local Mesa Journal-Tribune knew how important holiday spirit was, so he came up with a wild stunt to boost everyone's enthusiasm. Instead of a simple Christmas parade, he would have a Santa Claus parachute from a plane with a sack of presents and deliver them to waiting kids. But holiday spirit isn't enough to pull off a miracle. The problem with the scheme started from the outset. McPhee wanted to hire a stuntman and have a real Santa land, but the stuntman he hired showed up for work drunk as a skunk. It wouldn't do to have Santa smelling of Jim Beam, so he quickly came up with a way to jerry-rig the whole thing. First, a dummy wearing a parachute would be dropped from the plane. Once on the ground, they would do the old switcheroo, and McPhee would give out the presents. But the mannequin chute never deployed in midair, and all the kids present watched in terror as Santa Claus plummeted hundreds of feet and crash-landed in a field. Hope the Depression hasn't made therapy unaffordable. Despite desperate attempts claiming that Santa was unharmed thanks to a Christmas miracle, all the kids present were traumatized. McPhee would ultimately apologize for the disastrous stunt, but he would still be known as the man who killed Santa. His ill-advised Christmas event would become such a cult story that it would eventually be immortalized as a radio play in 2022. But hey, as disturbing as this event must have been for the kids of Mesa, at least no one was actually killed. The same can't be said for these stories. Number 7. One of the top characteristics of Santa Claus is hope. The man never lets anything get him down. Well, unless it's a Rankin Bass special and he has the blues because one of his reindeer looks different. But James Kenneth Bryant epitomized the spirit, despite having run into many hard times in his life. The 49-year-old Florida man had been homeless for a while, but that didn't let him diminish his love for the holiday season. He was well known around his hometown of Hudson for standing at the side of the streets and waving at people, and when the Christmas season was near, he would dress up as Santa and greet people, earning him the nickname Homeless Santa. But unfortunately, that name doesn't provide the protection of a magical sleigh. It was 2 days before Christmas in 2014 when Bryant was on one of his rounds when he was hit by a Toyota Avalon. While he wasn't wearing his Santa suit at the time, everyone knew him in town as the jolly old elf, and he was memorialized in local papers as the town's own Santa Claus. He died at the scene, and the motorist was not initially charged due to the crash happening at night and the driver not being under the influence or driving recklessly. Authorities simply chalked it up to a tragic accident, and probably an illustration why on foggy nights Santa doesn't drive without a little extra boost from a certain reindeer. But sadly, Santa is far from invincible away from the North Pole, not even from his own body. Number 6. Albert Beitholtz was synonymous with Santa Claus in the town of Niskayuna near Schenectady, New York. The 60-year-old jolly man played Father Christmas every year at the local Mohawk Mall. He also pulled double duty as the Easter Bunny, as well as putting on magic and puppet shows during the holiday off-season. But he took his Santa role seriously, even growing his own beard so a kid wouldn't accidentally yank it off and have the illusion of belief shattered. He played the role for 20 years and was basically the only Santa Claus most people in the area knew, which made the events of November 1986 even more shocking. It was just another day of Beitholtz meeting with kids and taking their Christmas wishes. And then suddenly, he grabbed his chest and fell to the floor. Beitholtz was known for his grand entrances, entering on a sleigh with Mrs. Claus to the tune of Christmas carols. So when he suffered a fatal heart attack not long after the Christmas season opened, it was an illusion-shattering moment of the worst kind. Kids around the area realized that their beloved Santa Claus was in fact very mortal. But while Beitholtz died in his Santa suit, something magical happened after. The entire town came out and shared their stories of how he had impacted their lives. The story of the Santa who passed away spread much further than the central New York town. Most people only knew him as Santa at first, but soon a larger picture emerged. Beitholtz was a World War II veteran, a father and a grandfather, and a man who died exactly as he wanted to, with his boots and Santa cap on. But unfortunately, he wasn't the only Santa to die in his suit, and this next one had even worse timing. Number 5. Christmas in Russia is a little different. The holiday was essentially banned for decades under the Soviet Union, and the majority Russian Orthodox Christian faith has different traditions and aesthetics. But the one thing they do have in common is Santa Claus. There, known as Ded Moroz, translated as Father Frost or Grandfather Frost, the mythology surrounding him is a little different too. He was alternately known as a wizard or snow demon in pre-Slavic lore, but has since become their version of Santa and shows up to greet merrymakers each year. But one particular Ded Moroz was about to wind up on ice. Valery Titenko, an experienced Ded Moroz player, was playing a key role in a school play for a group of kindergartners in Siberia. The 67-year-old man donned the traditional fur coat despite having been in poor health and feeling ill the day before. But the show must go on. He got on stage, performed a bit of comedy for the kids, and then proceeded to fall to the floor and lose consciousness. And the kids didn't quite realize what was going on. The children in the audience were at first giggling, thinking it was part of a skit, until one of the clowns rushed over and realized that Titenko wasn't waking up. He was rushed to the hospital and died on the way, and no doubt left some very traumatized kids in his wake. After his final performance, those who knew him said Titenko knew he probably shouldn't go on stage, but he didn't want to disappoint the kids, which, as Santa Clauses go, is pretty good motivation. Halfway in, what's been the craziest Santa wipeout so far? Leave your comments below. While Santa might bring goodwill to the world, the same cannot be said for the world around them. Number 4. William Brown pretty much epitomized the Christmas spirit around Atlanta. The 74-year-old retired man was highly involved in charity work around town, including working at the Toys for Tots Center in the area as their Santa Claus. He and Jill Swenson were also involved with the local Lionheart Theater, which was in full swing in the summer season in May 2024. Brown might not have been wearing his Santa suit during the off-season, but the man's natural beard made him look more like Santa enjoying his summer vacation, until it came to a crashing end. Brown was riding in a car with Swenson when she attempted to merge onto the highway, only for a black Toyota Sienna to come plowing into them from behind. The beloved local Santa was killed on the spot, along with his friend and driver, while the 2 people in the other car were taken to the hospital in critical condition. And as word of the crash spread, tributes poured out for the man who was known as Santa around the area, because he was one of the few who kept the Christmas spirit going all year long. Let's head back to Russia for a Father Frost who went out with a far bigger audience. Number 3. Christmas in Russia has become big business since it came back into fashion, and that has led some people looking to cash in on it to make some ill-advised decisions. This was the case at the end of 2023 as an apartment management company looking to boost the spirits of a population that had been largely impoverished as a consequence of the Russian war in Ukraine. The Chelyabinsk management company knew that they wanted to bring a Father Frost in, but not one with the standard entrance. No, their Santa would be a daredevil. And on the ground, countless families watched as a man dressed in a red robe appeared at the top of a 24-story building and began climbing down. After all, Santa is an adventurous sort, and he climbs down countless chimneys every year. Why would the side of an apartment building be any different? And it was going well, until midway through the climb when the man lost his grip on the rope and plunged down to a snow-covered building below. And unfortunately, this Father Frost did not have any wizard healing powers. The unfortunate Santa was pronounced dead at the scene, providing a very scary and confusing scene, including for his wife and children, who were in the crowd. Reportedly, many of the guests thought it was part of the show at first. It turned out after the fact that he was an industrial cleaner who worked for the management company and had been an experienced climber. But he had rigged his safety ropes incorrectly that day, and one time was all it took for Christmas to be canceled permanently. Maybe stick to a sleigh entrance next time. But at least he didn't have quite as spectacular an exit as this Santa. Number 2. As if the great dead Santa dummy of Mesa wasn't enough of a warning, maybe it wasn't a good idea to have Santa enter on a plane. But for the North Park Shopping Center in Indiana in 1967, nothing was too spectacular for them. The stunt had been organized by the North Park Merchants Association to boost holiday shopping at their stores, and they would certainly get the publicity they were seeking. But be careful what you wish for, because they were about to become part of one of the most infamous Christmas disasters of all time. Word spread around the town that Santa would be making a grand entrance in a helicopter. This was something that was highly anticipated, as commercial helicopter travel was still a big novelty. The helicopter would be piloted by an experienced pilot, William B. Dorr, and he was joined by veteran Santa William C. Brents, a local toolmaker. They took off, came into view of the shopping center, where up to 2,000 spectators were watching, and then the helicopter blade clipped on a high-voltage power line. And everyone watched in horror as the helicopter began to nosedive. Not only did the helicopter flip upside down and crash nearby, but the battery was thrown out and smashed through a window of a vehicle on the ground. The town's power was also knocked out for 3 hours. Everyone watched in horror as the helicopter made a crash landing, killing Santa on impact and mortally wounding the pilot. The entire event was so disturbing that the local newspaper had to step in. An article was quickly published debunking the idea that Santa had actually been killed in the crash, claiming that the true Santa had survived unharmed. But all these Santas died trying to bring joy to the world. Not this one. Number 1. It was December 23, 1927, a time of joy and festivity in the small central Texas town of Cisco. But not for one man. Marshall Ratliff was a no-good hood, and he was planning his biggest heist ever. Along with Henry Helms, Robert Hill, and Lewis Davis, the three cased the First National Bank for a major robbery. They just needed a way to get away clean. That meant that they needed a good disguise, and Ratliff had the perfect one that would take everyone by surprise. After all, 'tis the season. When Ratliff walked into the bank dressed as Santa, no one was surprised. Children even thought that he was there as a holiday event. That is, until his accomplices entered with pistols drawn, and Santa proceeded to empty the safe and take most of the people in the bank hostages. They proceeded to engage in a shootout with the local police, killing the police chief and mortally wounding his deputy. Santa and his naughty elves fled, taking 2 young girls with them on the road. What ensued was a massive chase, as the crooks would abandon 1 wounded robber along the way and the 2 hostages later. It had been the biggest bank robbery in Texas history, and it now was the biggest manhunt. Davis would die from his injuries in the shootout, and the other 3 would face trial. Hill would receive 99 years in prison, but be pardoned in the 1940s. Helms would get the death penalty, and the ruthless mastermind Ratliff, the Bad Santa, would receive the same. But he would never make it to the death chamber. After a series of escape attempts, a crowd would gather outside the jail, break in, and capture Ratliff before hanging him. The illegal lynching would be investigated by local authorities, but most of the people in the area supported it. After all, he ruined Christmas. Alright, which Santa disaster tops the list for you? Head to the comments and let us know. Want to know some other famous faces who met their ends in unique ways? Check out Dumb Ways to Die Celebrity Edition, or watch this video instead.